So what on earth can a 2,600-year-old prophecy about shepherds teach us about leadership? Well, as it turns out, a ton. Today we're going to dive deep into one of the most powerful metaphors from the ancient world, one that still hits home today. We're talking about the shepherd and the sheep, right from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 34.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with a flock in total crisis. Then we'll unpack the big accusation against their leaders. After that, we see this dramatic divine intervention. And it gets even more interesting. There's conflict inside the flock. Finally, we'll get to the promise of a peaceful future and see how this whole story left an incredible, lasting legacy.
Now, to really get what Ezekiel is doing, you have to know he wasn't just pulling this out of thin air. Nope. He was actually building on this really fiery accusation from a prophet who came before him, Jeremiah. Jeremiah was the one who first pointed the finger and squarely blamed Judah's leaders, the shepherds, for scattering their people, the sheep. So that really set the stage for what Ezekiel was about to do, which was a much more detailed and devastating takedown.
So when we hear a scattered flock, what are we actually talking about? Is it just poetry? Not at all. This was a direct, punch-to-the-gut reference to a devastating real-life event, the Babylonian exile.
Imagine this. The people of Judah were literally ripped from their homes and deported by the Babylonian Empire, not once, but in 2 huge waves. And Ezekiel, he was one of them. He's in exile himself, speaking to his own traumatized and displaced community. And his message is brutal. He's telling them, look, your own kings, our shepherds, are the ones to blame for this whole catastrophe. And isn't that just a timeless truth? When things fall apart, the first place we all look is to leadership.
Okay, so what exactly did these shepherds do wrong? Well, Ezekiel doesn't just make vague complaints. He lays out a detailed charge sheet, and it is a stunning indictment of failed leadership.
Just look at this contrast. It's almost like a performance review from hell, right? And it could apply to any leader in any organization, even today. On one side, you've got the basic job description of a shepherd. Take care of your flock. Simple. But on the other side, a complete and total failure to do the job. Instead of feeding the flock, the kings fed themselves. Instead of caring for the weak, they ruled with an iron fist. It's like they took their job description and did the exact opposite.
And this verse, wow, it just nails the core of their failure. See, the issue wasn't that leaders can't benefit from their role. That's not it. The real problem was that their perks came with zero responsibility. They took everything, the fat, the wool, the best of the best, but they gave nothing back. No care, no protection. It's a classic, timeless critique of any leader who puts their own gain before the good of the people they're supposed to be serving.
And this is where the whole story pivots. It's a huge turning point. After the human shepherds are shown to be total, absolute failures, God makes this dramatic announcement. Okay, that's it. I'm taking over the job myself.
And here's what's so powerful. What comes next isn't just some vague promise like, don't worry, I'll help. No. It is a precise, point-for-point reversal of every single thing the kings failed to do. It's the perfect mirror image of their failure.
This quote just lays it all out so clearly. Every single thing the kings ignored, finding the lost, bringing back the ones who wandered off, bandaging the injured, God now promises to do it personally. Can you imagine being in exile and hearing that? What an incredible message of hope. And it's really a masterclass in what we'd call servant leadership today, right? The ultimate leader steps in to personally fix what's broken.
But just when you think you've got the story figured out, it takes this fascinating twist. Turns out, the problem wasn't just the bad leaders. Ezekiel points to another, deeper problem. There was exploitation happening inside the community itself. So the focus shifts from just bad bosses to a whole toxic culture within the flock.
So he basically splits the flock into 2 camps. You've got the fat sheep. These are the powerful, the influential exiles who are using their status to take advantage of everyone else. And then you have the lean sheep, the vulnerable folks, the victims who are getting pushed around by their own neighbors. And the way he describes it is so vivid, you can almost see it. The fat sheep don't just eat the best food. They stomp all over the rest so no one else can have it. They don't just drink the fresh water, they stir up mud in what's left behind. It's pure selfishness. And God's response? He says he's going to step in and judge between sheep and sheep, basically to protect the vulnerable from their own bullies.
Okay, so after diagnosing both the bad leadership on top and the toxic culture within, Ezekiel finally lays out the solution, a vision for a restored future, a future of real, genuine peace and security.
And this future is built on two key things. First, a totally new kind of leader, a righteous under-shepherd. And second, a whole new environment of complete security, which he calls a covenant of peace.
So this new leader is called My Servant David. And that word servant, that's the whole ballgame. Unlike the old kings who just did whatever they wanted, this new leader is pictured as someone who serves a higher power. His authority comes from God, and he's accountable to God. His job is to bring unity and justice, all while serving a purpose bigger than himself.
And what's the result of all this? Well, the number one promise, and it's repeated 3 times just to make sure you get it, is security. The Hebrew word for safely or securely just keeps popping up. It's laser-focused on the deepest fear of a people who had lost everything. And we're not talking about some vague, fuzzy feeling of safety here. This is the real deal. It's comprehensive. We're talking physical safety from wild animals, political safety from enemy nations, economic safety from being robbed or going hungry, and maybe most importantly, a restoration of dignity, an end to being shamed as a nation. Literally every single fear these exiles had is named and taken care of.
So why does any of this matter today? Why talk about a 2,600-year-old text? Well, because its legacy is absolutely huge. The language, the imagery, this whole idea from Ezekiel 34, it literally became the blueprint for how Jesus is described in the New Testament.
I mean, the parallels are just undeniable. They're not subtle at all. When God says in Ezekiel, I will seek the lost, you fast forward and hear Jesus saying he came to seek and to save the lost. When Ezekiel talks about God judging between sheep and sheep, Jesus picks up that exact same imagery to talk about the final judgment. And of course, the big one, Jesus takes on the title for himself, declaring, I am the good shepherd. It's a direct line.
And it's not just us making this connection. As the scholar Dr. Leslie Allen puts it, Ezekiel 34 is the ultimate source for all of this. It's clear that Jesus and the writers of the New Testament grabbed hold of this powerful metaphor to explain his entire mission and identity. They rooted it right back in this ancient prophecy.
And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. This ancient text gives us this timeless and honestly pretty challenging model for what leadership should be. It's all about responsibility, justice, and selfless care for the most vulnerable. So it really leaves us with a big question to chew on. In our own lives, in our communities, our workplaces, our countries, what does it actually mean to be a good shepherd today?